What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Brian of the almighty Diamond Head. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Alex. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. I've been rehearsing that for a week. I'm glad it worked out great.
It worked out very well. You're a professional.
I do my best. But Lighting to the Nations 2020 coming out. This is just, when you look at, it's been 40 years since, or even longer since we got the original Lighting to the Nations. Like, how do you look at this with like a different perspective or a different point of view than when you put out the first Lighting of the Nations?
Of course, it's a different world, isn't it? Metal has just grown so much over the past 40 years. When this album came out, I had no idea that I would have this kind of longevity, that I would have a career that lasted, almost my whole life. That original album was done very quickly. The whole thing recorded and mixed in a week. It was our first time in a proper studio making an album, and we didn't have a lot of technique available. We didn't do it to a click track or anything. It was all a bit live, a bit rough and ready. But I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's become it's still Diamond Head's most famous and biggest album. But I had no idea that we were gonna, still be talking about it and end up re-recording it. I mean, that would have been a weird concept back in 1980.
Yeah. What I was curious is, I kind of like jumping into this question a little early, but between 1980 and now, there's been a lot of technological advancement in the recording world. Did that maybe work to your advantage for re-recording this material and bringing new life into Lighting to the Nations?
Oh yes, 100%. But back in the day, it was just analog tape. It was a 2-inch tape. It was very expensive to record in studios in those days. Even a tape, just a single 24-track tape was about £90, I believe. And you'd need about half a dozen of them to make an album. But these days, it's all digital. It's all done on Pro Tools. You can edit. Chop little bits. The editing is incredible that you can do digitally nowadays. So the idea of re-recording the album with this lineup and this band, modern technology, we just thought we could make it sound much heavier, much more powerful, much more now. Hopefully hooking some new fans who may not be interested in listening to a 40-year-old album. So it just, once we digested the idea, it seemed, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that digital is starting to sound as good as analog in a way? Because some artists I know refuse to touch anything digital with a 10-foot pole.
I've been using digital for a long time, and I think it's fantastic, mainly because of the editing, but also it's much cheaper to record digitally. You can make an album now at home, pretty much. This album was made in Raz's flat, pretty much. The only thing you can't do at home is drums. So as long as you've got a space where you can record a drum kit, you can do everything else. I mean, the guitars on this were done using like a mini amp called it was called a Driftwood Mini Nightmare, and then you put that into this box of doom, which is like a flight case with a speaker and a microphone in it, and then everything's reamped that way. But we didn't have the opportunity to get in a big studio and set up and have Marshall stacks. And, bands probably are doing that less and less these days. Of course, that's what every band would like to do. And if we had the money and the time, we would do that. But I think needs must, and you have to make the album as best you can with your budget and the equipment you've got.
Yeah. Definitely. That always plays a role in it one way or another.
Sure, sure.
Between, when you put out Lighting to the Nations in 1980 and now, you released a lot of other great albums such as Borrowed Time, such as Death in Progress, and,
Thank you.
What's in Your Head. So, like, do you almost feel that, like, maybe also exploring into your work and, creating a lot of great albums in between, then you were kind of able to approach Lighting to the Nations 2020 with a bit of a clean slate or maybe some new ideas as well?
Yes, I think so. I think that the technique that not only I have picked up, but the rest of the guys. I mean, we've all been playing a long time now. I've been playing guitar for 45 years, and so I've learned so much from making albums. I ran a studio for 5 years, and I've got a home studio that I've had since 2006. And so, of course, I've probably done 100 or more demos here at home. So I think my timing is very good, and I've learned so much technique. I taught guitar as well for 10 years, so I've just amassed a lot of technique. That I, when it comes to recording, I'm not scared of the red light kind of thing. I know pretty much what I've got to do. I can play in time. I'm very careful with tuning and layers of guitars. So I knew we could make a much bigger sounding record than we managed to make in 1980. It was all a bit overwhelming probably in 1980. You're almost trying to capture the band live, just get it down in one take, all set up in the room, and then just overdub a second guitar and the lead vocal. But now, you can do 4 tracks of guitars and 10 tracks of vocals, and you name it, if you've got the time and the patience.
Of course, patience is something that isn't very rock and roll, I've noticed, or either that or yeah. that has to be a band's image now, the most patient band in the world. That hasn't been done before.
Yeah. That's not going to sell records, is it really?
Nope. And it's not going to sell tickets either.
Yeah, the most outrageous band, the biggest rock and roll band, and then you've got the most patient band in the world. Nobody's going to buy into that, are they?
I'm sure people would be honored to have that title, though. Yeah. Now, one thing I was curious about is, being that you mentioned you taught guitar and, you are very focused on your work. Do you actually have, like, the full theory background that you incorporate? Like, when you were writing the work for It's Electric or Am I Evil, like, were you thinking of music theory at all, or are you completely self-taught?
I am pretty much self-taught. My older brother, David, 6 years older than me, played in a local band. So he had a guitar and he was able to show me chords and early, a few riffs. He'd probably show me how to play, Paranoid or Smoke on the Water or something. And then I overtook him because I once I got into it, and a lot of times boys become obsessed with things, and I probably became obsessed with the guitar once I decided to learn. So I've lost my point.
It happens.
What was the question again? Yeah, I might be able to.
Does theory ever play like a role in your work?
Yes, sir. Okay, so no, I didn't have a clue about theory. I had no idea about modes and scales and technique. What's it called? Technique to doing warm-up techniques and things. So no, I just picked it up by ear, pretty much, listening to records, copying people. But when I started teaching, I started getting into theory, and I learned a lot, and it helped get me out of a rut, really, where I felt I wasn't progressing, and I couldn't understand how, what these players, you'd listen to somebody like, say, Steve Vai or Joe Satriani, and you just think, well, on earth that they playing that, Paul Gilbert, and so I probably missed out on a lot of training, and I suppose you could say I'm more of a feel player because I grew up with the people like Michael Schenker and Richie Blackmore and Eddie Van Halen, and so I'm looking for I'm looking for guitar riffs and I'm looking for killer solos more than, this is a Mixolydian over a D chord or something. So I know more now, but I hadn't a clue back in the day.
Yeah, I remember those scale modes like Locrian or Phrygian. They're so hard to remember. But I had a guitar teacher who actually taught me a good way to remember all of those if you ever are going to teach again.
I probably won't. I did it for 10 years and then I decided to not do it anymore. Yeah. And as Diamond Head got busier, I just didn't need the aggro. The school kids coming round, and their moms phoning up and saying, "Oh, Johnny's got a cold, so he's not coming," and things like that.
Especially in today's day and age. But if you ever need help remembering those scale modes again, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, my teacher taught me this. It's I don't particularly like midgets attacking ladies. That's how you remember all those scale modes.
Oh, I've never heard that before, so but it makes it easier to remember, yeah.
Definitely. And being that you are a field player, like when you're writing these solos and you're writing these riffs and these chord progressions, is it like almost representative of like an emotion that you were feeling at a particular time?
I'm not sure. I'm just always looking for something that maybe I try not to repeat myself. And I'm just looking for something that works. I'll try lots and lots of different things until I'm happy. I can easily record 50 solos and before I start to get a frame, I think, okay, the intro's good and the outro's good, and then I'll try and work on the bit in the middle and just patient, come back to it. If I come back to it the next day and I don't like it, I will just erase it and start again. And eventually, I can't get it any better. And at that point, I have to leave it alone. I feel, okay, I like it. I don't know what to add to it. And I then leave it alone. So I get to that stage, really. But emotion, I don't know. I just think I've got a feel anyway, my vibrato and just the way I play, and maybe my influences just maybe dictate a certain way I play,
Yeah. And do you find it easier to come up with ideas when you're maybe in the company of other bandmates or in the company of other musicians and you're, working with each other? Or do you find it easier to maybe come up with song structures when you're like alone in isolation and there's nothing between you and the guitar?
Yes, probably alone. I wait, I try and prepare the music as best as it can be at home and then take it to rehearsal. And then we will, say, oh, okay, that's great, that bit's great. This bit don't quite work, and change a bit, or maybe a bit's too long, or maybe that bit on the end would be good at the beginning. So we change things a little bit, but I'm not very good at being in the room with the other guys and then just coming up with a great riff. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore. It probably did in the when I was a teenager, and your brain is a complete, open book. But these days, I just have to. I very often practice, and something will just come to me while I'm playing, almost like it falls under your fingers, and you just suddenly think, oh, there's a good riff, and I instantly tape it because I won't be able to remember it in 10 minutes' time. So I tape it, and then I will review the tapes, and I will pick the best ideas. And sometimes I get 4 or 5 ideas all at once, and that might be the whole song there, and then I will make a demo. But that doesn't happen very often. That might happen once a month or once every 2 months. I've definitely slowed down as I've got older. My brain is less agile.
Mm-hmm. I'd imagine too, being an artist, inspiration sometimes strikes at very inconvenient times as well, right?
It does, but then again, everybody's got a phone now, haven't they, with a recorder on it? And so even if you've gone to bed and you suddenly think, what if I do that? Then I could record it. And of course, I wouldn't have been able to do that years ago. You'd have had to try and remember it, because it's no good writing down the notes, is it? You can't write down E, A, G, A, B, C, because next morning it means nothing. It's the timing that is important, not necessarily the notes. Yeah. So at least I can record ideas and then review them, and then maybe make a proper demo of the idea.
Yeah, of course. But that makes me nervous too. Like, everybody was like, I've always said that there should be a law that pilots should not be artists, because I'm worried that they'll come up with an idea as they're like approaching the tarmac. Like, everybody was so stoked about Bruce Dickinson being a pilot. I'm like, I hope he's not writing song lyrics as he's like landing the plane.
I would imagine that he's too busy concentrating on not killing everybody on board to worry about lyrics. I would hope that he can compartmentalize his brain and say, right, today I'm a pilot, tomorrow I'm writing lyrics.
It's just seeing that plane pull up at JFK Airport was just one of the coolest things ever. But so like one thing I was also curious about is, with a lot of technological advances, we talked about digital versus analog, but guitar and all these different pedals that have come to be and all these different amp modifications between tube and solid state, like has the way that the guitar world has evolved technological wise, did that also maybe open up your ideas to new experiences as well?
Well, more modern sounds, definitely, more high gain amps. We also use E flat now quite a bit. This whole album was recorded in E flat, whereas the original is in standard. But yeah, I'd have been grateful for a really high gain amp back in the day. I had a Marshall, and then for the solo, you'd turn on like a distortion pedal, and that would be about it, or a wah. But now, I mean, the different amps and even if you're using plugins or something, the choice becomes incredible. You could almost like go around in circles saying, well, I quite like that one, and then what was number 61 again, and you can waste a lot of time trying to dial in different sounds from Axe effects or Kempers or whatever it is. But the versatility is fantastic. The choice, because sometimes you're looking for a sound, but ultimately I think you just need your main sound. You need a lead sound and you need a clean sound, and I can get by with just that.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes the less you need, the better, in a way.
Yeah, you can't go too far. I've seen people with massive pedal boards, thousands and thousands of pounds worth of pedal boards, and when they do the gig, I can't hear what they're doing. They might be turning things on and off, but it's so lost in the mix, which is normally drums and vocal anyway. You can hardly hear the guitar. So this little subtle, phaser that comes on in the second verse, I can't tell.
Yeah, I don't know how like Tom Morello does it or something like that. I almost feel like when you have that many pedals, not only are you learning the guitar, but you're also learning double bass on drums.
True. But he is a bit special, and also they don't have another guitarist, do they? So when he goes to a lead part, there's no rhythm guitar, so there's a lovely space for him to occupy. The dynamics of Rage Against the Machine is works brilliantly, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it just depends on the style.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have two more questions for you. But when it comes to playing, Diamond Head music live, because what I've always admired about Diamond Head's music is that it does capture a moment in time, and it does represent that, that energy in a way. When it comes to playing live, is there maybe a similar art to playing live as when you're songwriting, or do you feel like they're two completely separate games altogether?
I would say they're separate, but I did. All the time when we started, we wanted to write songs that would excite the audience. Very often the goal is to do the gig and then to play our songs and then for them to go down well. And I remember we thought early on, we did a couple of slow songs and they didn't work live. We felt they were boring. We felt the energy was sucked out of the room. And so we stopped doing any slow songs, and we pretty much opened with a fast song and went fast all the way through. Because all we wanted to do is really kind of whip up the crowd and get them excited and leave the place victorious. So I do bear that in mind. I try not to write slow songs. They come anyway, and so they've got to be really good for me to want to include them on an album. But mainly, I try and whittle it down to writing faster songs that I know are going to work well live.
Yeah, sometimes a slow song works, I feel like, depending completely on the show. I've noticed at festivals, nobody really likes to play slow songs too much, unless they're the headliner.
Yes, yes. Well, we've got, we do a lot of festivals now, and so you may have 50 minutes, and of course you're going to just cram it with your big songs, aren't you? We're going to do our Am I Evil, we're going to do Helpless, we're going to do The Prince, that kind of thing, and we'll do a couple of songs off the new album. But there's no way we're going to risk doing it like a 6-minute slow number in the middle of a festival set, because it's just probably not going to work.
Yeah, it'll kill the vibe very quickly.
Yeah, they're there to party. Yeah. Play the hits and shake your tits.
You got to get a stage banner that says that. Please make that happen. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, I'm sure you've been asked this numerous times before, but I was very curious that when you see how a lot of bands have taken inspiration from Diamond Head, when you saw like Metallica playing Am I Evil at the Big Four concert, and you see how people cited your guitar soloing styles and inspiration, did that also influence you in a way?
I guess so. It's very reassuring, isn't it, for bands to cover you and to say you're an influence on them. It does give you some kind of justification that you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing. It gives you a confidence to keep doing more of the same. So, of course, when Metallica covered Diamond Head and kept name-checking us, it did help the band immensely that we'd become this cool, influential band, and probably helped, my confidence to say, right, keep going, keep writing, keep playing live. There's an audience out there for you, rather than just fading away. In a way, we were sort of being kept alive a little bit by Metallica, or being thrust back into the metal eye, if you like. And so here we are 40 years on, still doing it. And it's amazing. That's
the beauty of the metal community. We all help each other one way or another.
Yeah, metal. Very often, once you're into rock and metal, it stays with you your whole life. It's not a fickle thing, is it? It's not like pop, where you go off somebody when there's a new pretty face appears. It is loyal. You have to have every AC/DC album, don't you? And you have to have every Metallica album, even if you don't like it. You have to have it.
Yep, I've noticed that too, and I noticed that metalheads also have the greatest appreciation for classical music too.
Absolutely, there is. I like classical. I like choral music as well. I think there's a lot of beautiful music out there, and I like a lot of different styles, and I think it probably all seeps into the writing in some way.
Definitely, classical music is heavy metal music before electricity.
Yeah, before guitars.
Yep. Beethoven was rocking the crazy metal hair before any of us. He invented it.
He was. If he'd have had a guitarist with a Marshall stack, he'd have used it, wouldn't he? He'd have said, right, you play this.
Exactly. He's making everybody in rock. He owns rock and roll heaven. So, before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Diamond Head that you would like to promote in terms of the release in terms of like live stream performances or anything to promote Lighting to the Nations?
We haven't done any live stream performances. We were offered a couple, but it just seemed like a lot of hassle and a lot of expense. Our drummer lives in France, and at one point, there was this 2-week thing where he would have had to isolate for 2 weeks, and then when he went back, he'd have had to isolate for 2 weeks. And it became such a palaver that we ended up not doing any of that. But all I would say is, listen to the new Lightning to the Nations 2020. Check it out. There's 3 videos for it. It's on YouTube. It's on our website. And we've got dates in the UK next year, April and May, but nothing in the US has been booked yet. So just wish everybody a good Christmas and hope it'll be, make it as good as you can under the circumstances.
Yep, we're going to be lighting up the tree and lighting to the nations. I've been waiting to use that line the entire interview. But thank you so much, Brian. Everybody, Brian of Diamond Head, Lighting to the Nations 2020. Pick it up there. Makes a great holiday gift. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.